License to Kill is the second and final Timothy Dalton James Bond movie. I'm very excited to give you guys my review for this movie. If you want to check out my reviews for all the previous Bond films, I'll have a playlist up and you can click on that and go check those reviews out. And be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Now let's get into this review. In this film, James Bond goes rogue to infiltrate and take down the organization of a drug lord who has murdered his friend's new wife and left him near death. Now, there's a lot of Bond films that I tend to enjoy more than most people do. There's even some of my previous videos, there's been a few where I said I think this is an underrated James Bond film. Well, for me, License to Kill is, in my opinion, the most underrated James Bond film. I think both the Dalton movies are underrated, and I think Timothy Dalton is underrated as James Bond. License to Kill for me is the one that's underrated the most. And there was a time when I didn't like this movie. When I first watched it, I was like, no, didn't like it. But years later, I watched The Living Daylights for the first time and really liked it. And I went back to License to Kill and really liked it. And today I love it. It's one of my favorite Bond films. And I think one of the things I just love about it is how different it is from the rest of the films. Like, it's Bond going rogue, which they've done in some other movies where he's a bit more of a loose cannon, but I think it was done the best in this movie. And I love Timothy Dalton's portrayal. Like, this is at this point anyway in the Bond franchise, it was like the most brutal we'd ever seen Bond be, and most like cold-hearted, and it really worked for me. I've heard some people say that this movie's interpretation of Bond is the most accurate to the books. I've not read all the books to know for sure, but if that's true, that's great. That's really cool. But yeah, I love how sort of dark this movie gets compared to the previous ones. Even from The Living Daylights, this one gets quite a bit darker in my opinion. And Timothy Dalton, I think, is great as Bond in this movie. He's great at the brutality in some of those scenes and just being very cold to some people. I thought it was great. I really liked the villain in this movie. I liked that he was a bit more of a villain that could be more real than some other Bond villains. Like, there's still a larger plot than just sort of being that, drug lord going on. But I thought he was really good. I thought that villain was a more memorable one for me anyway. The actor who played him did a really good job. I thought he was menacing. He could be like charming and menacing, which was great. I really liked that. And I overall really enjoyed the revenge story going on in this movie. I like how Bond was slowly sort of infiltrating the organization and trying to get in a good footing with the villain. I thought that was done very well. There's some great action in this movie, especially the final battle where they're on the trucks and they're battling like on top or at the side of the trucks and all that. I thought that was really good. There's some fun, just sort of grittier scenes as well that I quite enjoyed. This movie's also got a young Benicio del Toro as the henchman in this, and I kind of would like to have seen more of him. He's not actually in this movie a whole lot. Kind of would like to have seen more of him in this movie, but I thought he was pretty decent as the henchman. The Bond women in this are fine. I feel like that I've been saying that a lot lately in the Bond reviews. The Bond women are just fine, and they're fine in this one. And yeah, that's about as much as I can say. They work for the movie, but not particularly memorable. We do get to see a bit more of Q though, which is good. We get to see him out in the field a little bit more, helping Bond. I really like that, because Q's always a fun character. He always has fun dynamics with Bond, so I really enjoyed that. Even though this movie is a more serious Bond film, it still has some of those classic Bond moments where it's getting a bit more over the top, like he's driving one of those big trucks and doing like a wheelie through the fire. We got moments like that, which for some people may not work in a movie that's more serious, but for me it was still fun. Like, it's still a 80s era Bond film. It worked for me. I thought it was fun. My biggest issues with this movie, I think, are some of the supporting characters. Their performances weren't great in my opinion. And the sort of conclusion, or resolution should I say, with Bond and M and MI6, didn't feel like there was much consequence for him going rogue and disobeying orders. I'm fine with them eventually like letting him, be a 00 again officially. But at the end, he's on the phone with Felix, and Felix is like, oh yeah, M's got a job for you or something. I would have liked there to be maybe a bit more conflict between the two, or a bit more proper resolution, should I say, at the end, where maybe Bond and M have an actual scene together and they sort of discuss what's happened and find a way to work around it. Maybe something like that, because it made it feel like there wasn't too much consequences. That's probably my biggest issue. That, and then some of the supporting characters, their performances weren't too great in my opinion. But other than that, I love the story. I love the brutality in this movie and how it got much darker. The action I thought was great. Timothy Dalton as Bond was great. And I'm sad we didn't get a third movie with him. But we got 2 movies with him, and I love both of his films. So I'm just happy about that. And I know this is a film that at the time a lot of people did not like, but lately people have been more positive on this movie, but I still think it is very underrated. So if you have seen it, be sure to let me know what you think about it. Maybe this one just doesn't work for you. Maybe you're like me who thinks it's underrated. Let me know. As for me, I'm gonna go really high with this rating. I'm gonna go at 90% for License to Kill. It's probably like a top 5 Bond film for me. I love this movie. So again, let me know what you thought about it, and be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned for some more reviews soon. And until then, take care everybody.